This international presentation involves all the steps that take place after we sell a calibration system. Over the past couple years, we have been growing in calibration systems, so we thought we'd change the pace a little bit from how to sell calibration systems and focus on what happens after we sell a calibration system and what makes us different. So, first of all, let's talk about what makes installing a calibration system challenging. When we are showing up at a customer site to install a system, the customer's expectation is at the highest that it will ever be. They are seeing the system that they purchased and paid a good sum of money for, and they want to see that it works, and it works in the way that they were expecting it to. At the same time, our ability to control the situation, the installation, is at its lowest. So if we were to plot this, here's what an expectation would look like from the customer before, during, and after the install. As you can see, during the install is when it's at its highest. If we look at our ability to control the installation and the system, we're at our lowest. And if you think about it, that makes sense. We're showing up at the customer site that we have not been to before. We don't know what power is going to be available, what air supply is going to be available, what tools are available, who we're meeting with. This is the first time that we're getting to see where the system is ending up. So we don't have a lot of control of the situation. So if we view this in terms of risk of something not working correctly, that's what our risk would look like. During the installation and training, because the customer expectation is the highest and our control of the situation is the lowest, the risk becomes very high. So customer expectation is going to be fixed when we perform an installation. The only way we can lower the risk of having an unsuccessful installation is to maximize how much we can control the situation and how much preparation we do ahead of time. So following a very systemic and structured installation process is absolutely essential to have a successful installation. So, looking at some of the things that we do to minimize the risk associated with installation, a lot of things that we do ahead of the shipment of the system. The first thing we do is a review of the contract. When we get an order from the customer or from the distributor, we look at the items that were ordered, and we also look at our previous communications through our notes from web demonstrations or email communications or call records if we talk to them on the phone, and we make sure the items that were ordered match up with what we had talked to them about in the past. In most cases it does. If not, we always review that with the customer and bring them up, so we try to identify issues ahead of time. Another thing that we need to consider are the payment terms and the shipping details. Sometimes, a fair amount of times, we get our system together, we test it all out, we're happy with the system, we believe it's a good system, and we're ready to send it, and we don't have something that we need. We don't know who is going to pick up the system because we don't have freight forwarder information, or the import and export's not complete, or we haven't received payment. So reviewing and tracking the payment and shipping information ahead of time is essential to make sure the system is delivered on time and the customer is satisfied. Now, all of the items I have here, contract review, payment, and shipping, are communications that we do through our distributors, through you guys. We need to work with you to make sure that all these items are addressed so the system does arrive on time and the customer is at least happy with the timing of the system. We also do a little bit of homework ahead of time. We have a couple forms that we send to the customer that we ask them to review and fill out and return to us before we ever show up at their site. The first form that we send is the Facility Requirements form. This tells the customer what we're expecting them to have available at their facility to operate the system. The two most important items on that list are the power requirements, the number of outlets they need, how much voltage they need, the frequency, the current, everything related to power that is needed to operate the system. The second is the air requirements, so that air is available to run the air bearing shaker. As you can imagine, if one of these items is not met and we show up for an installation, we're going to have a difficult time installing and training on the system because we cannot operate it. So it's critical that we address these questions ahead of time and make sure the customer is ready for us to show up. The second form that we use is the installer requirement form. This is a form we send out and ask the customer to fill out and send back to us. This includes items like what identification will we need to get on site. Do we need a passport? Do we need something more than a passport? Is there any safety equipment that is required for us to bring? Steel-toed boots, safety glasses, and so on. Hearing protection is another example. It will not work well if we, it will not work well if we show up at the customer site and we are unable to go to the installation site because we have missed a small detail. So these two items are important in making sure that when we show up to the customer site to perform the install, that we are able to perform the install. The next step in the process is the actual installation and training. What we want to achieve when we perform installation and training, we want our customer to be, first of all, completely satisfied with the system when we leave. We also want them to be trained and competent in the use of the system. This will help us reduce and minimize the amount of technical support that we need to provide in the future. We want objective evidence that the user has completed the training and knows how to use the system. We want to document that the system is performing correctly. And of course, we want all of our installations to be consistent. We want to provide training certificates to the customers, and they want those as well. And in cases where we need to have additional actions after the training, we want to document those in what we call a punch list so that we can review it when we return to Cincinnati and deal with any remaining issues that may have come up during the installation. So that's what we want to achieve. When we show up, what the customer expects is the system operates as promised. So this requires us to have proper system assembly and a site acceptance test process. They want their users to be trained to use the system. And to address that, we use a defined and structured training process. And one of the pieces that makes our system unique is the ability to tailor it to meet specific customer needs. An example of that is changing calibration certificates or using the local units in terms of G or meters per second squared. Specific frequencies, reference frequencies. There's a number of specific customer-specific pieces that they expect us to be able to meet. So how do we go about meeting the customer's expectations and our expectations when we are installing a system? Well, I've broken it into 5 steps. The first step that we do after we assemble the system is to validate that the system is working properly. We have a very structured and a documented site acceptance test procedure in which we use the verification sensor to confirm that the system is operating as it was when we originally shipped it. the results of the verification sensor are compared to both PCB's calibration results and our factory acceptance test results to make sure that the system is perfect before we start training on it. The second step is to train the customer. To do this, we used a checklist to make sure that we are covering all aspects of the system and we're not leaving parts out. Once again, training is very important. Successful training is very important so that after we leave the customer site, they don't have a lot of support requests. We don't mind supporting our customers. We're happy to support them. But if they have a lot of questions that come out, they feel that we didn't do a good job training them, and we have to spend a lot of time to retrain them off-site. So we always want to make sure we do a good job training the customer and complete a thorough training process. Step 3 is another important step, and that is to evaluate that the user that we just trained is able to run the calibration system. The first step of that is to have them calibrate the verification sensor and make sure they are getting the same results as we did. That shows that they at least know how to connect the system components and run the system and complete a calibration. The second step that we do is we throw a little bit of troubleshooting at them. We'll move some cables and we'll change a couple things in the system and see if they are able to fix the system so it is running properly. Once they've completed this training and the results look good, we provide them with a training certificate showing that they have completed the training and we are satisfied with the results they've been able to achieve. Step 4 is to build their confidence in the system and give them practice in using the system. Back when we are asking for facility requirements, we also recommend sensor types for them to have available so they can calibrate their own sensors on the system and see how, and practice how the system will be used on a daily basis. And then step 5, called completing the installation, which is where we're addressing specific needs of the customer, like calibration certificate modifications and any other smaller customizations that they request. We also make sure that we document any remaining items that were not addressed during the installation that we need to address at a later time. This all goes on the installation checklist, and at the bottom, once we've documented everything and the customer is satisfied with the installation, we sign it, they sign it, and then they are trained and we are complete with the process. So the installation and training process is a very important step to make sure that we have satisfied customers and that they will recommend us to other customers. To do this, we must minimize uncertainty during the installation process. This is the only way to consistently have a successful installation. As far as we know, the Model Shop is the only company that has this defined of an installation process to make sure that the customers are happy. This is certainly something that can be used pre-sale, before we sell a system, as another advantage of the Model Shop over our competitors, having a defined installation process, so the chances of success are very good with us, where it might not be so much with the customer. So that's all I have for today. I'll go ahead and unmute everyone.